Wow, can you think of any hard rock album that has a more dramatic and suspenseful intro than that? I don't think I can. That, of course, the opening strains of Back in the Saddle, which kicks off Aerosmith's incredible Rocks album, often considered one of their best, if not the best. I once read an interview with Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry, who wrote this masterpiece, in which he said, "Our best playing is on Rocks. It really stands out." And it's tough to argue with that. According to Perry, he wrote this riff and several others from the Rocks album in a basement studio that he had put together heavily under the influence of various substances, which we won't go into right now. But be that as it may, the first thing to know about this riff is it is not played on a guitar, believe it or not. He's playing something called a Fender Bass 6. This is an instrument you don't see too much. He was inspired to use it by Peter Green, who apparently used it occasionally in Fleetwood Mac performances. I always think about the Beatles when I think of the Bass 6. They famously used it for a few tunes on the White Album. You know that sort of growling, almost punk rock bass tone on Helter Skelter, for example? That's the Bass 6, and it works perfectly here as well to help set this intense mood. The Bass 6 really occupies this weird middle state between a guitar and a bass. So it's got 6 strings like a guitar, but they're tuned a full octave lower. So the bottom 4 strings are exactly like a bass guitar, but then we have the 2 extra strings above that. Its scale at 30 inches makes it a shorter scale than a typical bass, but longer than a guitar. And just to make it even more weird, it's equipped with a whammy bar. But it's really the chords that Perry plays that are the key element here. Now, I don't have a Bass 6, so I've adapted this part for electric guitar. The band are tuned down a half step, not uncommon in a lot of rock music. But I'm going to call out these chords as I usually do, just assuming standard tuning. It's easier that way. So it's A, C, and E flat power chords. Those 3 chords are all a minor third apart. That's 1.5 steps. And whenever you move in minor third intervals, it sounds very diminished. A diminished arpeggio contains all minor third intervals, and it's got a very intense feel, doesn't it? But the real kicker is, along with those power chords, he adds a flatted 2, which he quickly pulls off, which creates a great feeling of tension and release. He does it on all 3 chords. And the tension is further heightened by a sort of droning A pedal tone underneath the whole thing. Just a beautiful part. And I love the way they finally come out of this intro and into the chorus. This is one of those songs that goes to the chorus first and then the verse. That's always fun. It's a little bit out of the ordinary. So we get the final build-up. A, C, E flat. Then they settle down a half step to D. Great move. And they use that same flat 2 several times till you're just on the edge of your seat waiting for a whole step move up to E, and you're into the chorus. By the way, the bass and drums have been doing a great job all along, slowly building to a rolling boil. Joey Kramer's kick drum sounds great here. It's very pushed up in the mix, which is a great effect. And if the rest of the band took their sweet time and built things up slowly, vocalist Steven Tyler does not. He's pedal to the metal right out the gate. Let's listen to his entrance. that's a great showcase for Tyler's characteristic vocal rasp. It sounds so incredible, and it's kind of amazing that his voice held up as well as it did over the years. He's a high tenor. He can make it all the way up to E6 or maybe even F sharp 6 in his head voice, which is pretty amazing. Here's a description of Tyler's vocal technique that I found on the internet, so therefore it must be true, right? They describe his signature tone as honey-coated rasp. That's a great phrase. I love it. He achieves his grit through supraglottal compression and false chord engagement, which allows for a distorted sound without immediate damage to the true vocal folds. Now, I don't know enough about the mechanics of singing to judge whether that's accurate. It sounds reasonable. Maybe I should consult my wife, Tracy, who, as I frequently mentioned, is a voice teacher. And what about that insanely dark riff going underneath there? I'll tell you, Perry wrote some great riffs down in that basement of his. Once again, adapted for electric guitar here from the bass 6. The essential implied progression here is E, G, A, right? But they really embellish it with some nice chromaticism and whatnot. Killer riff. And following the final repetition of that riff, they hang on the A chord for the verse. So the choruses are in E, the verses are in A. And now that we've made it up to the verse, it's probably as good a time as any to talk about Steven Tyler's lyrics. Now, earlier I had mentioned that Joe Perry wrote the song, and it's true in terms of the music, but of course, vocalist Steven Tyler wrote the lyrics. Tyler, always known as the king of the double entendre, the king of innuendo, and this tune is no exception. The title's genesis was a conversation between Tyler and the album's producer, Jack Douglas. By the way, that's another big factor in what makes this album so great. Not only had the band's playing improved, the songwriting had improved, and the production took a big step up here. At any rate, Tyler and Douglas were talking, and Douglas came up with the idea that Back in the Saddle would be a good way to open the new album, sort of a clever way to announce that the group was back again and ready to rock. But Tyler being Tyler, he took the phrase to be a metaphor for various sexual positions, and the thing quickly morphed into the tale of a cowboy riding into town to satisfy his desires. I'm sure many of you watching are old enough to remember Gene Autry's Back in the Saddle. This is not Gene Autry's Back in the Saddle, folks.
I'm back in the saddle again, out where a friend is a friend, where the longhorn cattle feed on the lowly Timpson weed. I'm back in the saddle again.
Riding into town alone by the light of the moon. I'm looking for old Sukie Jones, she crazy horse saloon. Now, I'm going to pause there for a moment. Sukie Jones, of course, is a lady of the night. And just to show how influential Aerosmith was on younger rock bands that came in their wake, Guns N' Roses, Slash, and Metallica's James Hetfield are just a couple of artists that have named this as one of their favorite songs of all time. And Guns N' Roses' ex-drummer, Steven Adler, named his solo project Sukie Jones in honor of this tune. He eventually changed the name to Adler's Appetite. But there's no question that Aerosmith was revered by so many younger artists and inspired a lot of great music. Anyway, Tyler continues in a similar vein. Come easy, go easy, all night until the rising sun. I'm calling all the shots tonight, I'm like a loaded gun. Peeling off my boots and chaps, I'm saddle sore. 4 bits gets you time in the racks, I scream for more. Fools gold out of their minds, the girls are soaking wet. No tongue's drier than mine, I'll come when I get back. And then of course you have that long outro. I'm riding, I'm loading up my pistol. I'm riding, I really got a fistful, and on, you get the idea. Not so subtle, really. Tyler wrote the lyrics in the stairwell at the record plant studio. Apparently, that was kind of a routine he had. He would wait for the band to finish the basic track and then would go off to be by himself and come up with the lyrics. The recording process for this one was pretty bizarre. The band really took the whole cowboy theme seriously. So Tyler taped tambourines to his cowboy boots and stomped on a piece of plywood. They also brought in an actual bullwhip to make the cracking sounds that we hear during the outro, but the band couldn't really figure that one out, so they ended up bruised and cut in the process after spending hours trying to get the thing to actually crack. So in the end, they settled for whirling around a 30-foot studio cable and firing a cap gun to get the desired effect. And it actually worked out pretty well. This whole outro is just so chaotic. By the way, that was an A-flat 5 that Tyler just hit. He's going to do it over and over again. This song doesn't really have a true guitar solo per se, but there is just all kinds of little jamming going on back there. And I suspect it's probably Brad Whitford rather than Perry. Whitford never gets enough credit. Maybe a better guitarist than Perry when you get down to it. Some cool licks back there. Very country sounding almost, major pentatonic stuff. Like right there. And meanwhile, you hear the kind of gallopy cowboy stuff going on. Cool whammy bar stuff too. I love that great descending bass line that just ended the tune. I'm not sure if that was part of Perry's original composition. If I had to guess, I bet bassist Tom Hamilton is probably responsible for that. Now, this song was the third single released from the Rocks album, and honestly, it was kind of a mediocre performer. It only made it up to number 38. Probably not too surprising. It's a bit hard rock, it's a bit out there, and the general record-buying public was probably just not quite ready for it. But it's one of those classics whose stature has only increased more and more over time. It's become one of Aerosmith's best-known and best-loved tunes and a staple of their live performances. And I think a testament to the song's enduring popularity is the fact that Aerosmith recently came out with a new 2025 mix featuring some added vocals from up-and-coming rock singer Youngblood. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he came into the consciousness of old people like me and you when he performed at the final Ozzy Osbourne / Black Sabbath show a few months back. He did a great job on the old Black Sabbath tune Changes, really sang his ass off. And I think he does a pretty good job here. Check it out. You're going to hear Tyler singing the first two lines of this verse, and I don't think it's a re-record. This really sounds like the original Tyler vocal to me. And then you'll hear Youngblood come in on the next two lines. And you when I compare those two voices, I have to go back to that goofy phrase, the honey-coated rasp. Youngblood sounds good, but it's a bit more jarring to my ear. There's something about Tyler's voice, in spite of the rasp, it still sounds very pleasing and almost soothing in a weird way. There are a few people out there, including probably most prominently Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins, who are touting Youngblood as a potential savior of rock and roll, the guy who might resurrect this music. Now, I'm not too sure about that. More power to him for keeping this music in the public eye. But it's going to be really tough for anyone to fill the shoes of the likes of Aerosmith. And sadly, I just don't know if it's something that people want in this day and age. Time will tell. And on that note, we're going to leave this one here. By the way, this was another one of my commission videos. Remember, if you go to mjerant.com, send me an email. Let me know if there's a song you want to see me cover or a subject you want to see me cover, and we could work out the details. So far, I've only had one guy take me up on it, but I think this is the third video I've done for him, and I'm happy to do more. So hopefully some more folks will get involved. All right, thanks as always, and talk soon.